Resilience, the superpower of successful people. Written and published by Rising Audiobook. Introduction. Have you ever worked hard for something only to watch it fall apart? Have you ever faced rejection after giving your best effort, experienced failure when success seemed within reach, or felt completely lost after life took an unexpected turn? If so, you are not alone. At some point, every person faces moments that test their strength. The promotion goes to someone else, the business fails, the relationship ends, the dream seems impossible. In those moments, it is easy to believe that the setback is the end of the story. But what if it isn't? What if the very obstacle standing in your way is actually preparing you for a greater version of yourself? Every successful person you admire has faced failure, rejection, disappointment, and adversity. Yet while some people allow challenges to break them, others emerge stronger, wiser, and more determined than ever before. The difference is not talent, intelligence, luck, or privilege. The difference is resilience. Resilience is the ability to rise after a fall, to keep moving forward when life pushes you backward, and to transform pain into power. It is the hidden force behind every comeback, every breakthrough, and every success story. Life will test you, that is unavoidable, but adversity does not have to defeat you. With the right mindset, every setback can become a lesson, every failure can become feedback, and every challenge can become an opportunity for growth. In this audiobook, you will discover how to develop the superpower of resilience and learn how to turn setbacks into comebacks. Chapter 1. The Truth About Setbacks. Why failure is part of every success story. Think about the last time something didn't go according to plan. Maybe you worked tirelessly toward a goal and still fell short. Maybe you put your heart into an opportunity only to face rejection. Maybe you believed you were finally moving forward, only to find yourself knocked back by circumstances you never saw coming. In those moments, failure feels deeply personal. It doesn't feel like an event. It feels like a verdict. It whispers dangerous lies into your mind. You're not good enough. Maybe you don't have what it takes. Perhaps this dream was never meant for you. Yet history tells a very different story. The truth is that failure, rejection, and disappointment are not signs that you're on the wrong path. More often than not, they are signs that you're on the same path every successful person has walked before you. One of the biggest misconceptions about success is that it happens smoothly. We see the finished product, the successful entrepreneur, the best-selling author, the championship athlete, the respected leader, and assume their journey unfolded in a straight line. We see the spotlight, but rarely the darkness that came before it. What we don't see are the sleepless nights, the mistakes, the doubts, the closed doors, and the countless moments when giving up would have seemed like the easier option. Success has a way of hiding its scars. Behind every remarkable achievement is usually a collection of failures that never make the headlines. Every breakthrough is built upon lessons learned through struggle. Every victory carries the fingerprints of previous defeats. This reality can be uncomfortable, but it is also incredibly freeing. If failure is part of every success story, then your setbacks do not disqualify you from success. They may actually be preparing you for it. Consider the story of Thomas Edison. Today he is remembered as one of the greatest inventors in history. His invention of the practical electric light bulb changed the world forever. But what most people remember is only the outcome. Before the success came thousands of unsuccessful experiments. Imagine the frustration. Imagine investing time, energy, and hope into an idea again and again, only to watch it fail repeatedly. Most people would have concluded that the goal was impossible. Many would have abandoned the dream entirely. Edison chose a different perspective. Instead of viewing each failed experiment as proof of his inability, he viewed it as information. Each attempt taught him something valuable. Each mistake eliminated another possibility. Each setback moved him one step closer to discovering what would eventually work. His failures were not interruptions to success. They were part of the process of success. This mindset reveals one of the most important truths about resilience. Successful people do not necessarily fail less than others. They simply interpret failure differently. When many people experience a setback, they attach it to their identity. They don't say, "I failed." They begin to believe, "I am a failure." There is a profound difference between those two statements. One describes an event, the other describes a person. A resilient individual understands that failure is temporary. It is something that happened, not something they are. They separate their identity from their circumstances. They recognize that mistakes, losses, and disappointments are experiences they move through, not labels they carry forever. This distinction changes everything. When failure becomes an event instead of an identity, it loses much of its power. It becomes something to learn from, rather than something to fear. Growth often demands discomfort. Achievement often requires risk. Innovation often involves uncertainty. Whenever you step beyond what is familiar, there is always the possibility that things won't go as planned. But there is another possibility as well. The possibility that every setback is teaching you something you could not learn any other way. The possibility that rejection is strengthening your determination. The possibility that disappointment is developing your character. The possibility that today's struggle is preparing you for tomorrow's opportunity. Many people spend their lives trying to avoid failure. Resilient people understand that failure is not the enemy. Stagnation is. The greatest danger is not falling down. It is refusing to move because you are afraid of falling. The people who accomplish extraordinary things are not those who never fail. They are those who refuse to let failure have the final word. As you continue through this audiobook, remember this simple truth. Setbacks are not evidence that your journey is over. They are evidence that your journey is real. Every successful person has been where you are. Every great achievement has faced resistance. Every comeback begins with a setback. And perhaps the challenge standing in front of you today is not the end of your story. Perhaps it is the beginning of your comeback. Chapter 2. The Resilient Mindset. Changing the way you see adversity. Two people can walk through the same storm and come out completely different. One emerges bitter, defeated, and convinced that life is unfair. The other emerges wiser, stronger, and more determined than ever. The storm was the same. The pain was the same. The challenge was the same. What changed was the way each person chose to interpret the experience. This is one of the most important truths about resilience. Your life is shaped not only by what happens to you, but by the meaning you give to what happens. Many people believe adversity automatically creates suffering. But adversity itself is only part of the equation. Between an event and your response lies something incredibly powerful: your perspective. Perspective acts like a lens through which you view reality. It influences your emotions, your decisions, and ultimately your future. The same challenge can look like a prison through one lens and an opportunity through another. Imagine two employees receiving the same devastating news. Both are informed that their company is downsizing, and both lose their jobs. The first person immediately sees the event as proof that life has failed them. Fear takes control. They begin imagining the worst possible future. They tell themselves they are too old, too inexperienced, or too unlucky to start over. Days turn into weeks. Weeks turn into months. Instead of moving forward, they become trapped by the story they keep telling themselves. The second person feels the same shock, disappointment, and uncertainty. They are not immune to fear. They are not pretending everything is fine. But after the initial pain settles, they begin asking different questions. What can I learn from this? What opportunities might exist that I couldn't see before? What skills can I develop? What doors could this unexpected change open? The circumstances are identical, but the outcomes begin to diverge because their perspectives are different. This does not mean resilient people enjoy adversity. They do not celebrate failure, loss, or hardship. They experience pain just like everyone else. They feel disappointment. They struggle with uncertainty. They have moments of doubt. The difference is that they refuse to see challenges as permanent punishments. Instead, they learn to view them as invitations to grow. Some of the greatest transformations in life begin with circumstances we never wanted. A failed relationship may teach us lessons about self-worth and boundaries. A professional setback may push us to develop skills we otherwise would never have pursued. A personal disappointment may reveal strengths we never knew existed. Growth often arrives disguised as difficulty. The challenge is that most people only recognize the value of adversity after they have moved through it. While they are in the middle of the struggle, all they can see is the pain. Resilient individuals train themselves to remember that today's difficulty may contain tomorrow's breakthrough. This mindset is closely connected to what psychologists call a growth mindset. People with a fixed mindset believe their abilities, intelligence, and potential are largely unchangeable. When they encounter failure, they often interpret it as evidence of personal limitation. A growth mindset operates differently. Instead of asking, "Am I good enough?" it asks, "What can I learn from this?" Instead of seeing failure as a final judgment, it sees failure as feedback. Instead of viewing challenges as threats, it views them as opportunities to improve. This shift may seem small, but it changes everything. When you believe growth is possible, setbacks lose much of their power to define you. Difficult experiences become classrooms rather than prisons. Mistakes become teachers rather than enemies. Another defining characteristic of resilient people is their focus on control. When life becomes difficult, it is easy to obsess over things we cannot change. We replay the past. We complain about circumstances. We wish reality were different. We spend enormous amounts of energy fighting battles that cannot be won. Resilient people take a different approach. They ask a simple but powerful question: what can I control right now? They may not control the economy, but they can control their effort. They may not control other people's opinions, but they can control their actions. They may not control unexpected setbacks, but they can control how they respond. This focus creates momentum. Every time you direct your attention toward what you can influence, you reclaim a sense of power. Every small action becomes evidence that you are not helpless. And over time, those small actions compound into meaningful change. The resilient mindset is not about denying reality. It is about choosing the most empowering interpretation of reality. It is about recognizing that while you cannot always choose your circumstances, you can choose your response. Life will present challenges that test your patience, your confidence, and your strength. Some will arrive without warning. Some will feel unfair. Some may leave scars that take years to heal. But adversity does not have the final say. The meaning you assign to adversity does. The moment you stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What can this teach me?" your transformation begins. Because resilience is not found in avoiding storms. It is found in learning how to see the storm differently and discovering that the person emerging from it is stronger than the person who entered. Chapter 3. Mastering your emotions during difficult times. There is a moment that almost everyone knows but rarely talks about. It is the moment after receiving bad news, the moment after reading the rejection email, the moment after the relationship ends, the moment after the dream you've spent months or years building suddenly begins to fall apart. Everything becomes quiet, not because the world stops moving, but because your mind becomes overwhelmed by what has just happened. Your heart feels heavy, your thoughts race, fear starts creating worst-case scenarios, doubt begins questioning your abilities, anxiety whispers that things may never get better. In those moments, the greatest battle is often not against the challenge itself. It is against the emotions the challenge creates. Many people believe resilience means being emotionally strong enough not to feel pain. They imagine resilient individuals as people who remain calm no matter what happens, never feeling fear, sadness, frustration, or self-doubt. But that is not resilience. Resilience is not the absence of emotion. It is the ability to experience difficult emotions without allowing them to control your life. This distinction is important because every human being experiences emotional pain. No amount of success, intelligence, confidence, or experience can completely eliminate fear or disappointment. These emotions are part of being human. The problem begins when we mistake emotions for facts. Fear tells us we will fail. Anxiety tells us the future is hopeless. Self-doubt tells us we are not capable. Frustration tells us our efforts are pointless. Yet emotions are often temporary visitors, not reliable predictors of reality. Imagine standing outside during a thunderstorm. Dark clouds cover the sky. Rain pours heavily. For a moment, it may feel as if the storm will never end. But deep down, you know something important. The storm is temporary. The sky still exists behind the clouds. Our emotions work in a similar way. Fear, sadness, anger, and anxiety can feel overwhelming when they arrive. They can temporarily block our ability to see clearly, but they are emotional weather, not permanent conditions. Unfortunately, many people make critical decisions during emotional storms. They quit goals because of temporary discouragement. They end opportunities because of temporary fear. They abandon dreams because of temporary self-doubt. Instead of responding thoughtfully, they react impulsively. One of the defining characteristics of emotionally resilient people is emotional awareness. Emotional awareness means recognizing what you are feeling without becoming consumed by it. It means being able to pause and say, I am feeling anxious, I am feeling disappointed, I am feeling afraid. Notice the difference. You are not saying, I am anxiety. You are not saying, I am fear. You are acknowledging the emotion without allowing it to become your identity. This small shift creates powerful psychological distance. When you can observe an emotion, you gain the ability to manage it. When you become the emotion, it manages you. Think about how often people react immediately when emotions become intense. A hurtful comment triggers anger. A setback triggers panic. A mistake triggers shame. The reaction is automatic. But resilience grows in the space between feeling and responding. Emotionally resilient people learn to create that space. They understand that while emotions deserve attention, they do not deserve complete authority over every decision. This is where mindfulness becomes incredibly valuable. Mindfulness is not about eliminating negative emotions. It is about observing them without judgment. Instead of fighting fear, you acknowledge its presence. Instead of suppressing sadness, you allow yourself to experience it. Instead of resisting anxiety, you observe it with curiosity. Ironically, emotions often become stronger when we try desperately to avoid them. The more we run from fear, the larger it appears. The more we suppress pain, the longer it stays. The more we deny our emotions, the more power they gain over us. Acceptance does not mean surrender. Acceptance means recognizing reality as it is, so you can respond wisely. Another powerful practice is reflection. When difficult emotions arise, most people immediately focus on escaping discomfort. Resilient individuals do something different. They become students of their own experiences. They ask questions. What am I feeling right now? Why am I feeling this way? What is this emotion trying to teach me? What can I learn from this situation? Reflection transforms emotional pain into self-awareness. Over time, this self-awareness becomes one of the greatest sources of personal strength. You begin recognizing emotional patterns before they control you. You notice triggers earlier. You understand your fears more deeply. You develop the ability to navigate challenges with greater wisdom and confidence. Emotional regulation is another essential skill in resilience. This does not mean suppressing emotions. It means managing them in healthy ways. Sometimes emotional regulation looks like taking a walk when frustration is rising. Sometimes it means journaling instead of bottling everything inside. Sometimes it means talking to a trusted friend rather than carrying the burden alone. Sometimes it means taking a deep breath before responding to a stressful situation. These simple actions may seem small, but they create profound long-term effects. Every time you choose a healthy response over an impulsive reaction, you strengthen your emotional resilience. Every time you remain calm during uncertainty, you train your mind to trust itself. Every time you face difficult emotions without running away, you prove to yourself that you are stronger than you once believed. The truth is that resilience is not built during easy times. It is built during the moments when fear is present, but you keep moving forward. When anxiety is loud, but you continue taking action. When disappointment hurts, but you refuse to give up. Emotional resilience is not about becoming emotionless. It is about becoming emotionally skilled. The goal is not to avoid fear, frustration, sadness, or self-doubt. The goal is to prevent those emotions from becoming the authors of your future, because emotions will always come and go. Storms will always appear. Difficult seasons will always arrive. But when you learn to understand your emotions rather than obey them, something remarkable happens. You stop being controlled by every challenge life throws at you. You become steady when circumstances are unstable. You become thoughtful when others react impulsively. You become stronger with every storm you survive. And that is the true power of emotional resilience. Not the ability to avoid difficult feelings, but the ability to carry them without letting them carry you. Chapter 4. Turning failure into feedback. There is a moment that almost everyone experiences, but few people talk about openly. It is the moment when something you deeply believed in falls apart. A goal you worked toward slips through your fingers. A project fails. A relationship ends. A dream that once felt certain suddenly feels impossible. In that moment, failure feels personal. It feels like proof that you are not capable enough, talented enough, or strong enough. Yet what separates successful people from everyone else is not that they avoid these moments. It is that they learn how to see them differently. Failure is often misunderstood. Most people view it as an ending, a verdict, or a sign to quit. But failure is rarely any of those things. In reality, failure is information. It is feedback from reality telling you what worked, what did not work, and what needs to change. The problem is that emotions often prevent us from hearing the message. The disappointment is so loud that we miss the lesson hidden inside it. Think about learning to walk as a child. No one expected perfection on the first attempt. Falling was part of the process. Every stumble provided information about balance, movement, and coordination. Imagine if a child interpreted falling as evidence that walking was impossible. Human progress would stop before it even began. Yet many adults do exactly that when facing setbacks. They treat one failure as a permanent judgment instead of a temporary lesson. The most successful people in the world have mastered a powerful skill. They separate their identity from their outcomes. They understand that failing at something does not make them failures. This distinction changes everything. When your identity is attached to every result, failure feels devastating because it attacks your sense of self. But when you understand that outcomes are simply feedback, you gain the freedom to analyze them objectively and improve. One of the greatest dangers after failure is the temptation to look away. It is easier to blame circumstances, bad luck, difficult people, or unfair conditions. While external factors do sometimes play a role, growth begins when we honestly examine our own contribution to the outcome. This requires courage. It means asking difficult questions. What could I have done differently? Where was I unprepared? What skills do I need to develop? These questions may be uncomfortable, but they transform failure into a valuable teacher. Consider the story of an entrepreneur who invested everything into a new business. He spent years building his company, believing it would succeed. Instead, the business collapsed. He lost money, confidence, and credibility. Friends questioned his decisions, and competitors viewed him as another failed dreamer. For a time, he was tempted to walk away entirely, but instead of allowing the failure to define him, he chose to study it. He reviewed every decision, every strategy, and every mistake. He discovered weaknesses in his leadership, flaws in his business model, and gaps in his understanding of the market. The experience was painful, but it became his education. Years later, armed with those lessons, he launched a second company. This time he avoided the mistakes that had destroyed the first one. The business grew rapidly and became far more successful than he had ever imagined. His first failure was not the opposite of success, it was the foundation of it. This pattern appears again and again in every field. Athletes study losses to improve performance. Writers revise rejected manuscripts until they become best-selling books. Scientists learn from experiments that do not work. Leaders learn from decisions that produce poor results. Success is rarely built on uninterrupted victories. It is built on a willingness to learn from mistakes that others try to forget. The truth is that failure becomes useful only when it is examined honestly. Ignored failures repeat themselves. Studied failures become stepping stones. Every setback contains clues about the next level of growth. Sometimes the lesson is about strategy. Sometimes it is about discipline. Sometimes it is about patience, communication, preparation, or mindset. Whatever the lesson may be, it is valuable information that cannot be gained through success alone. As you continue your journey, remember that every failure carries two possibilities. One path leads to discouragement, self-doubt, and surrender. The other leads to understanding, improvement, and renewed strength. The difference lies in your response. When you stop asking, "Why did this happen to me?" and start asking, "What can this teach me?" failure loses its power to defeat you. Instead, it becomes one of the most valuable tools for growth. The most resilient people do not fear failure because they understand its secret. Every mistake contains a lesson. Every setback contains feedback. And every piece of feedback, when used wisely, becomes a stepping stone toward the person you are capable of becoming. Chapter 5. Building Mental Toughness and Inner Strength. A tree does not become strong during sunny days. Its strength is built during storms. Every powerful gust of wind forces its roots to dig deeper. Every harsh season teaches it how to endure. Over time, what once seemed threatening becomes the very thing that strengthens it. Human beings are not so different. Many people believe mental toughness is something you are born with. They look at highly resilient individuals and assume they possess a special kind of strength that others simply do not have. They see someone remaining calm under pressure, pushing forward through setbacks, or persevering through adversity and conclude, "I could never be that strong." But they are seeing the result, not the process. Mental toughness is not a gift given to a lucky few. It is a skill, and like every skill, it is developed through practice. No one is born knowing how to handle failure gracefully. No one enters the world with perfect discipline, confidence, or resilience. These qualities are built one decision at a time, often during moments when giving up feels easier than continuing. The strongest people are not always the most talented, intelligent, or fortunate. Often, they are simply the people who learned how to keep showing up when life became difficult. Mental toughness is forged in ordinary moments. It is built when you wake up early to work toward a goal despite feeling tired. It grows when you continue after making a mistake instead of quitting out of frustration. It develops when you choose responsibility over excuses and action over avoidance. These moments may appear insignificant on their own, but together they create a powerful foundation of inner strength. One of the most important ingredients in this process is self-discipline. Discipline is often misunderstood. Many people associate it with punishment, restriction, or forcing yourself to suffer. In reality, discipline is an act of self-respect. It is the ability to do what is necessary, even when you do not feel like doing it. Feelings are constantly changing. Motivation comes and goes. Confidence rises and falls. If your actions depend entirely on how you feel, your progress will always be inconsistent. Discipline creates stability when emotions fluctuate. When challenges appear, disciplined people are less likely to panic because they have trained themselves to act regardless of temporary emotions. They understand that resilience is not about feeling strong every day. It is about continuing, even on the days when strength feels difficult to find. Every act of discipline sends a message to your mind. It says, "I can trust myself." That trust becomes one of the strongest forms of confidence. Real confidence is not built through positive thinking alone, it is built through evidence. Every promise you keep to yourself becomes evidence that you are reliable. Every difficult task you complete becomes evidence that you are capable. Over time, these small victories accumulate, and with them, your inner strength grows. Another powerful component of mental toughness is personal responsibility. Responsibility can feel uncomfortable because it requires us to look honestly at ourselves. It asks us to stop blaming circumstances, luck, or other people for everything that happens in our lives. This does not mean life is always fair. Sometimes setbacks occur through no fault of our own. Sometimes opportunities disappear. Sometimes challenges arrive without warning. But resilient people focus on what they can do next, rather than what should have happened differently. Responsibility is empowering because it returns control to your hands. The moment you accept responsibility for your response, you stop seeing yourself as powerless. You stop waiting for rescue. You stop waiting for perfect conditions. You stop waiting for someone else to change your life. Instead, you begin creating change through your own actions. This shift transforms the way you experience adversity. Challenges no longer become proof that life is against you. They become opportunities to demonstrate your strength. Mental toughness is also built through daily habits. Many people search for dramatic breakthroughs, believing that one major decision will instantly transform their lives. But resilience rarely develops that way. It grows quietly. It grows when you exercise even when you would rather stay comfortable. It grows when you keep learning after making mistakes. It grows when you practice gratitude during difficult seasons. It grows when you choose patience over impulsiveness and persistence over surrender. These habits may seem small, but they are constantly shaping your identity. Every repeated action becomes a vote for the person you are becoming. Day after day, those votes accumulate. Eventually, they create a person who is capable of handling challenges that once seemed overwhelming. The truth is that inner strength is not measured by how rarely you fall. It is measured by how consistently you rise. Mental toughness does not mean you never experience fear, doubt, or discouragement. It means those feelings no longer have the power to stop you. You continue despite them. You grow through them. You become stronger because of them. Like a tree strengthened by storms, your resilience is developed through resistance. Every challenge you face, every responsibility you accept, every disciplined action you take is quietly shaping your character. And one day, when life inevitably tests you again, you will discover something remarkable. You are no longer the person who entered the storm. You are the person the storm helped create. Chapter 6. Overcoming Fear and Developing Courage. Close your eyes for a moment and think about something you know you should do, but keep avoiding. Maybe it is starting a business you've dreamed about for years. Maybe it is applying for a new job. Maybe it is speaking up for yourself, ending a toxic relationship, sharing your ideas, or taking a risk that could change your life. Now ask yourself a simple question. What is stopping you? For most people, the answer is not a lack of ability. It is not a lack of intelligence, opportunity, or potential. It is fear. Fear is one of the most powerful forces in human life. It has protected us for thousands of years, helping us avoid danger and survive uncertainty. But in the modern world, fear often appears in situations where our physical survival is not actually threatened. It shows up when we risk embarrassment. It appears when we risk rejection. It grows when we face uncertainty. And perhaps most painfully, it becomes stronger after we have already been hurt. A person who has never experienced failure may feel nervous about taking a risk. But a person who has failed before often carries something heavier: memory. They remember the disappointment. They remember the embarrassment. They remember the heartbreak. The mind begins replaying old experiences and quietly whispers, "What if it happens again?" This is why fear often becomes strongest after setbacks. When you have been rejected, you fear future rejection. When you have failed, you fear future failure. When you have been hurt, you fear being hurt again. The mind starts building protective walls around itself. At first, those walls feel safe. They protect us from discomfort. They help us avoid risk. But over time, those same walls become prisons. Many people spend years waiting for fear to disappear before taking action. They tell themselves, "I'll start when I feel confident. I'll take the chance when I'm ready. I'll pursue my dream when I'm no longer afraid." The problem is that fear rarely disappears through waiting. In fact, waiting often makes it stronger. The longer you avoid something, the larger it becomes in your imagination. A difficult conversation becomes terrifying. A simple opportunity feels overwhelming. A small challenge begins to look impossible. Fear feeds on avoidance. The less you face it, the more power it gains. This is where one of the greatest myths about courage must be challenged. Many people believe courageous individuals are fearless. They imagine heroes, leaders, athletes, and successful people moving through life without doubt or anxiety. But courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is action in the presence of fear. The brave person feels fear. The confident person feels fear. The resilient person feels fear. The difference is that they refuse to let fear make their decisions. They move forward anyway. This understanding changes everything. You do not need to eliminate fear before taking action. You only need to be willing to act despite it. Consider the story of a person terrified of public speaking. Every time they stand in front of an audience, their heart races, their hands shake, their mind becomes flooded with self-conscious thoughts. Their fear feels real because it is real. Yet imagine if this person makes a decision. Instead of avoiding public speaking forever, they begin small. Perhaps they speak in front of 3 people, then 5, then 10, then 20. Each experience is uncomfortable. Each experience creates anxiety, but each experience also teaches an important lesson. The fear did not destroy them. The audience did not laugh them off the stage. The disaster they imagined never fully arrived. Slowly, something remarkable happens. The fear begins losing its authority. Not because the fear disappears completely, but because confidence begins growing. And confidence grows in a way many people misunderstand. Confidence is not created by positive thinking alone. Confidence is created by evidence. Every time you take action despite fear, you collect evidence that you are capable. Every time you survive a challenge, you prove something to yourself. Every time you step outside your comfort zone, you expand your understanding of what you can handle. Confidence is earned. It is built through experience. This is why action is so powerful. Action teaches lessons that thinking never can. You can spend years imagining a challenge and remain afraid, or you can face it and discover that you are stronger than your imagination suggested. Small acts of bravery are especially important because resilience is built gradually. Many people think courage requires dramatic gestures. They imagine life-changing decisions and heroic moments. But true courage is often much quieter. It is sending the application despite fearing rejection. It is making the phone call you've been avoiding. It is speaking honestly when silence feels easier. It is trying again after failure. It is getting back up when every part of you wants to stay down. These moments may seem insignificant, yet they are shaping your character. Every small act of bravery strengthens your ability to face larger challenges. Like a muscle, courage develops through use. The more you practice it, the stronger it becomes. And the stronger it becomes, the less control fear has over your life. Perhaps the most important lesson about courage is this: fear is not a sign that you should stop. Often fear is a sign that you are standing at the edge of growth. Think about the most meaningful moments in your life, the opportunities that changed you, the decisions that shaped your future, the risks that led to personal growth. Many of them were probably accompanied by fear, not because they were wrong, but because they mattered. Growth and fear often travel together. The question is not whether fear will appear. It will. The question is whether you will allow fear to determine the direction of your life. Resilient people understand something powerful. Fear may ride along on the journey, but it does not get to hold the steering wheel. They acknowledge it, they respect it, but they keep moving forward. And with every courageous step they take, they discover a truth that changes everything. The life they want exists on the other side of the fears they are willing to face. Chapter 7. The Power of Persistence. Keep going when others quit. Imagine standing in front of a locked door. You have been trying to open it for months, perhaps even years. You have pushed against it, knocked on it, searched for keys, looked for another entrance. Every attempt has been met with resistance. Every effort has seemed to lead nowhere. Eventually, exhaustion begins to whisper in your ear. Maybe this isn't meant for you. Maybe it's time to stop trying. Maybe everyone else was right. At that moment, most people turn around. Not because they lack talent, not because they lack potential, but because they underestimate the power of one more attempt. Persistence is one of the most misunderstood qualities in the world. It rarely looks glamorous. It does not attract attention. It does not create instant results. In fact, persistence often feels frustrating because it demands effort long before it provides evidence that the effort is working. We live in a world that celebrates outcomes. People admire success, wealth, recognition, and achievement. They applaud the person standing on the podium. They admire the entrepreneur whose company becomes successful. They celebrate the artist whose work reaches millions. What they rarely see are the years of persistence that came before the applause. Success stories often appear sudden from the outside, but from the inside, they are usually built through countless ordinary days of showing up when nobody was watching. Persistence is not about dramatic moments. It is about consistency. It is about continuing after the excitement fades. It is about staying committed when progress feels invisible. It is about refusing to abandon a meaningful goal simply because the path becomes difficult. The truth is that persistence is often the bridge between failure and success. Many people fail, not because their goals are impossible, but because they stop too soon. The journey toward anything worthwhile is rarely linear. Progress tends to happen in ways that are difficult to measure. For long periods, it may seem as though nothing is changing. Effort goes in, but visible results do not immediately come out. This can be discouraging. Human beings naturally want reassurance. We want proof that our hard work is paying off. We want signs that we are moving in the right direction. When those signs are absent, doubt begins to grow. The temptation to quit becomes stronger. Yet some of the most important forms of growth occur beneath the surface. Think about a seed planted deep in the ground. For days and weeks, nothing appears to happen. If you looked at the soil from above, you might conclude that the seed is inactive. You might assume the process has failed. But underground, something remarkable is taking place. Roots are forming, strength is developing, the foundation is being built. Only later does visible growth emerge. Much of personal success follows the same pattern. The effort you invest today may not produce immediate results, but that does not mean the effort is wasted. Every action is contributing to something larger. Every discipline choice, every lesson learned, every obstacle overcome is strengthening the foundation beneath future success. Persistence works because effort compounds. Small actions performed consistently create results that seem impossible in the beginning. A single workout may not transform a person's health. A single page may not complete a book. A single day of studying may not produce expertise. But repeated over months and years, those small actions become powerful. This is one of the greatest secrets of achievement. Extraordinary outcomes are often the result of ordinary actions repeated consistently. The people who accomplish remarkable things are rarely performing miracles. They are simply refusing to stop. One of the most powerful examples of persistence comes from J.K. Rowling. Before the Harry Potter series became a global phenomenon, she faced numerous rejections from publishers. At the time, she was struggling financially and facing challenges that would have caused many people to abandon their dreams. Imagine how easy it would have been to quit. Imagine receiving rejection after rejection and deciding that the dream was unrealistic. Imagine concluding that the world was giving you a clear answer, but Rowling persisted. She continued believing in her work when there was little external evidence to support that belief. She continued despite uncertainty. She continued despite rejection. Eventually, one publisher decided to give the manuscript a chance. That decision changed her life. More importantly, it changed the lives of millions of readers around the world. What if she had stopped after the first rejection? What if she had allowed temporary setbacks to determine her future? The story would have ended long before it ever began. This is why persistence matters so much. You never know how close you are to a breakthrough. One of the greatest tragedies in life is that many people quit just before things begin to change. Because progress is often invisible, they assume their efforts are failing. Because success has not arrived yet, they assume it never will. Because the journey has become difficult, they assume the destination is impossible. What they do not realize is that breakthroughs are often preceded by long periods of frustration. The final step receives attention, but the hundreds of steps before it made that moment possible. Persistence requires faith. Not necessarily faith that everything will work out exactly as planned, but faith that continued effort matters. Faith that growth is occurring even when it cannot yet be seen. Faith that today's struggle is contributing to tomorrow's success. Resilient people understand that obstacles are not signals to stop. They are invitations to continue. Every challenge becomes an opportunity to strengthen commitment. Every setback becomes a test of determination. Every disappointment becomes a chance to practice perseverance. This does not mean persistence is easy. There will be days when progress feels painfully slow. There will be moments when quitting appears logical. There will be times when you question whether your efforts are worth it. Those moments are normal. The difference is that persistent people keep moving forward anyway. Sometimes the step is large, sometimes it is incredibly small, but they continue. And over time, those small steps create extraordinary journeys. Long-term success rarely belongs to the most talented person in the room. It rarely belongs to the luckiest. More often than not, it belongs to the person who stayed in the game long enough for growth, learning, and opportunity to work in their favor. Persistence is not merely the ability to endure. It is the decision to keep believing in a possibility that has not yet become reality. It is the courage to continue when others stop. It is the discipline to keep showing up when results are delayed. And perhaps most importantly, it is the understanding that success is often waiting just beyond the point where most people decide to quit. So when life places you in front of a locked door, remember this: the door may not open immediately. It may require patience. It may require effort. It may require more attempts than you expected. But sometimes the difference between an unfinished dream and an extraordinary success story is simply the willingness to knock one more time. Chapter 8. Bouncing back stronger after major setbacks. There are some setbacks in life that disappoint us, and then there are setbacks that change us. The kind that arrive without warning and divide life into two chapters, before and after. A failed business that takes years of work with it. A relationship that ends despite your best efforts. A diagnosis you never expected to hear. A dream that suddenly collapses. The loss of someone you love. A mistake that seems impossible to undo. These are not ordinary challenges. They shake the foundations of your identity. They force you to question your plans, your beliefs, and sometimes even your sense of purpose. When major setbacks happen, people often receive well-intentioned advice. Stay positive. Everything happens for a reason. Just move on. But anyone who has lived through genuine adversity knows that recovery is rarely that simple. Healing is not a switch you flip. Recovery is not a straight line. And resilience is not pretending that everything is okay when it isn't. One of the most important truths about overcoming major setbacks is this: recovery begins with acceptance, not approval, not agreement. Acceptance. There is a difference. Acceptance means acknowledging reality as it is, rather than exhausting yourself fighting reality as it should have been. When something painful happens, the mind often enters a battle against the truth. This shouldn't have happened. This isn't fair. I can't believe this is my life now. These reactions are natural, but eventually healing requires a shift. Not because the pain disappears, but because resistance keeps us trapped in the moment of impact. Acceptance allows movement. It allows us to stop arguing with what has already happened and begin focusing on what happens next. This is where many resilient people separate themselves from the crowd. They do not spend all of their energy wishing for a different past. Instead, they slowly begin building a different future. One step at a time. Major setbacks create another dangerous challenge, the desire for immediate recovery. Human beings naturally want pain to end as quickly as possible. We want to feel strong again immediately. We want answers immediately. We want our lives to return to normal immediately. But deep healing rarely works that way. Imagine a person recovering from a serious physical injury. No doctor would expect them to run a marathon the day after surgery. Recovery requires patience. Strength must be rebuilt gradually. Progress happens in stages. Yet emotionally, many people expect themselves to heal overnight. When they cannot, they become frustrated with themselves. They begin believing they are weak. They feel guilty for still struggling. The truth is that recovery takes time, because transformation takes time. Resilient people understand this. They focus less on speed and more on progress. They stop asking, "Why am I not fully healed yet?" and start asking, "What small step can I take today?" That question changes everything, because major comebacks are rarely built through giant leaps. They are built through small victories. Getting out of bed when sadness says stay down. Making a phone call when fear says isolate yourself. Trying again when disappointment says quit. Trusting yourself when self-doubt says you can't. These moments may seem insignificant, but they are often where resilience is born. Consider the story of an athlete who suffers a career-threatening injury. One moment, they are competing at a high level. The next, they are facing uncertainty, pain, and the possibility that everything they have worked for may disappear. At first, the loss feels overwhelming. Their identity has been tied to performance. Their confidence has been built around ability. Now both seem fragile. The road back is long. There are surgeries, setbacks, difficult days and moments of doubt. There are mornings when progress feels invisible, days when frustration outweighs optimism, moments when quitting seems reasonable. Yet the athletes who return stronger rarely focus on the entire journey at once. They focus on the next exercise, the next rehabilitation session, the next small improvement. They rebuild piece by piece, and through that process, something remarkable happens. Their body may heal, but something deeper develops as well. Their character strengthens, their patience grows, their appreciation deepens, their resilience expands. The injury that once seemed purely destructive becomes part of the story that made them stronger. This transformation is not limited to athletes. It happens in every area of life. Major adversity often reveals strengths we never knew we possessed. Before difficulty arrives, many people underestimate themselves. They have no idea how much courage they carry. They do not know how adaptable they can become. They have never been forced to discover their deepest reserves of strength. Then life presents a challenge they never wanted, and somehow they survive it. Not perfectly, not effortlessly, but they survive, and in doing so, they discover a version of themselves they had never met before. A stronger version, a wiser version, a more resilient version. This is one of adversity's hidden gifts. It reveals capabilities that comfort often keeps hidden. It teaches patience. It teaches perspective. It teaches gratitude. It teaches strength. Not the loud kind of strength that demands attention, but the quiet strength that keeps going when no one is watching. The strength that rises after falling. The strength that continues after loss. The strength that refuses to surrender. Over time, many people look back on their greatest hardships and realize something surprising. They would never choose those experiences again. but they would not erase the person those experiences helped them become, because adversity changed them, it deepened them, it strengthened them. It taught them lessons success alone could never teach. This does not mean suffering is necessary for growth, but it does mean growth is possible through suffering, and that possibility matters. Because when you are standing in the middle of a setback, it is easy to believe that your story is ending. It rarely is. Most of the time, a setback is not the final chapter. It is a difficult chapter, a painful chapter, a chapter filled with uncertainty and struggle, but not the end. Your comeback begins the moment you accept reality, take one small step forward, and refuse to let your circumstances define your future. The strongest people are not those who never experience major setbacks. They are the ones who learn how to rebuild after them. And in the process of rebuilding, they often become stronger than they ever were before. Chapter 9. Transforming Pain into Purpose. If you could erase the most painful chapter of your life, would you? At first, the answer seems obvious. Who would willingly choose heartbreak, failure, loss, rejection, betrayal, disappointment, or suffering? Who would want to relive sleepless nights filled with anxiety, days weighed down by grief, or moments when life felt impossibly unfair? Most of us spend years trying to avoid pain. We protect ourselves from it. We fear it. We resent it when it arrives. And yet, when you listen closely to the stories of extraordinary people, you begin to notice something surprising. Many of the individuals who have made the greatest impact on the world were shaped by experiences they never would have chosen. Their pain did not destroy them, it transformed them. This is one of the deepest truths about resilience. Not all pain can be prevented. Not all suffering can be avoided. But even the most difficult experiences can become meaningful when they are connected to a greater purpose. Pain by itself can feel unbearable. It can leave us feeling lost, confused and powerless. When suffering appears to have no meaning, it often becomes much heavier to carry. We begin asking questions that have no easy answers. Why did this happen? Why me? What was the point of all this? Sometimes those questions remain unanswered for a long time. But purpose changes the nature of pain. Purpose does not magically remove suffering. It gives suffering direction. Imagine carrying a heavy stone up a mountain. If there is no reason for carrying it, every step feels pointless. Every ounce of weight feels unbearable. But if carrying that stone could save someone's life at the top of the mountain, the burden suddenly feels different. The weight remains the same. The meaning changes, and meaning has tremendous power. One of the unexpected gifts of adversity is perspective. During comfortable seasons, it is easy to move through life without deeply examining what truly matters. We become distracted by routines, ambitions, expectations, and daily concerns. Then adversity arrives. A setback forces us to stop. A loss forces us to reflect. A struggle forces us to look inward. Suddenly, things that once seemed important lose their significance, and things we once overlooked become precious. Difficult experiences have a way of revealing our values. They show us what we genuinely care about. They remind us what deserves our attention. They strip away illusions and expose what is real. Many people discover their deepest purpose only after their greatest challenges. Before adversity, they were moving through life unconsciously. After adversity, they begin living intentionally. This transformation often begins with a simple realization: my pain can serve a purpose beyond me. Consider someone who struggled with severe anxiety for years. Perhaps there was a time when they felt isolated, misunderstood, and overwhelmed. They spent countless nights battling fears no one else could see. Then, over time, they learned how to manage their anxiety. They developed coping strategies. They sought support. They grew stronger. Eventually, they begin sharing their story. What once felt like a private burden becomes a source of encouragement for others. Their struggle becomes their contribution. Their pain becomes their purpose. This pattern appears repeatedly throughout history. Many impactful leaders, teachers, advocates, and change-makers were not motivated by comfort. They were motivated by experiences that challenged them deeply. Some experienced poverty and dedicated their lives to helping others escape it. Some experienced discrimination and fought for justice. Some experienced illness and devoted themselves to improving healthcare. Some experienced personal tragedy and used their stories to bring hope to people facing similar circumstances. The very experiences that could have broken them became the foundation of their mission. This does not mean suffering is good, nor does it mean every painful experience has an obvious purpose waiting to be discovered immediately. Often, meaning takes time, sometimes years, sometimes decades. Purpose is rarely found in the middle of chaos. It usually emerges afterward, when we begin reflecting on what the experience taught us. One of the most powerful questions you can ask after adversity is, what is this experience teaching me about who I want to become? Notice that the question is not focused on the event itself. It is focused on growth, because adversity often reveals strengths that comfort never could. Before a challenge, you may not know how courageous you are. You may not know how patient you can become. You may not know how much compassion exists within you. Yet difficult experiences often uncover these qualities. They force hidden strengths into the light. They show you capabilities you never knew existed. In this way, adversity becomes a mirror. It reveals not only your wounds, but also your resilience. Not only your struggles, but also your strength. Many people spend their lives believing that purpose comes from achievements. They think purpose is found in success, recognition, status, or accomplishments. While these things can be meaningful, lasting purpose often comes from something deeper. It comes from service. It comes from contribution. It comes from using your experiences to make life better for someone else. When pain becomes a source of wisdom, it gains value. When suffering becomes a source of compassion, it gains meaning. When struggle becomes a source of strength for others, it gains purpose. This is why some people emerge from adversity stronger than before, not because they escaped the pain, but because they transformed it. They refused to let suffering be the final chapter of their story. Instead, they turned it into fuel. Fuel for growth, fuel for empathy, fuel for service, fuel for purpose. Perhaps the most beautiful aspect of resilience is that it allows us to reclaim ownership of our stories. Life may write painful chapters we never wanted. There will be losses we did not choose, disappointments we did not expect, struggles we never asked for, but we still have the power to decide what those experiences mean. We can allow them to define us, or we can allow them to develop us. We can allow them to make us bitter, or we can allow them to make us wiser. We can allow them to close our hearts, or we can allow them to deepen our compassion. Purpose begins when we stop asking, "Why did this happen to me?" and start asking, "How can I use this experience to create something meaningful?" That question changes everything, because pain is one of life's most powerful forces, and when guided by purpose, it becomes one of life's most powerful teachers. The experiences that once seemed determined to break you can become the very experiences that help you build something greater than yourself. And that is how pain becomes purpose. Not by disappearing, but by becoming part of a story that helps others rise. Chapter 10. Creating an Unbreakable Life. The Long-Term Habits of Resilient People. Imagine meeting two people 10 years from today. Both will face setbacks. Both will experience disappointment. Both will encounter uncertainty, loss, unexpected challenges, and moments when life doesn't go according to plan. But when you look closely, there is a profound difference between them. The first person is constantly overwhelmed by adversity. Every challenge feels like a crisis. Every obstacle feels personal. Their emotional stability depends entirely on external circumstances. When life is good, they feel strong. When life becomes difficult, they feel powerless. The second person is different. Life has not spared them from hardship. They have faced failures, heartbreaks, mistakes, and difficult seasons, just like everyone else. Yet there is something steady about them. They bend without breaking. They adapt without losing themselves. They recover without becoming bitter. What creates that difference? Not talent, not luck, not intelligence. The answer lies in the habits they practiced long before the storm arrived. Many people think resilience is something that appears during moments of crisis. They imagine that when adversity strikes, strong people somehow summon extraordinary courage from nowhere. But resilience does not work that way. The truth is that resilience is built quietly, long before the difficult conversation, long before the setback, long before the loss. It is built through small daily choices repeated consistently over time. Just as a house is strengthened brick by brick, resilience is strengthened habit by habit. This is why truly resilient people rarely rely on occasional bursts of motivation. They focus on creating systems, routines, and mindsets that support them even when life becomes difficult. One of the most powerful habits of resilient people is optimism. Optimism is often misunderstood. Many people assume optimism means pretending that problems do not exist. They imagine optimistic people walking through life wearing blindfolds, ignoring reality, and expecting everything to magically work out. True optimism is far more practical. It is the belief that challenges can be faced. It is the belief that difficulties are temporary. It is the belief that while the future may be uncertain, there are still possibilities worth pursuing. Resilient people do not deny reality. They simply refuse to let temporary setbacks convince them that all hope is lost. Optimism acts as fuel during difficult times. When others see dead ends, optimistic individuals continue searching for paths forward. When others see failure, they see feedback. When others see obstacles, they see opportunities to adapt. Closely connected to optimism is gratitude. At first glance, gratitude may seem like a simple practice, yet it is one of the most powerful tools for building emotional resilience. Life has a tendency to direct our attention toward what is missing, the goal not achieved, the opportunity lost, the mistake made, the challenge ahead. If we are not careful, we can spend years focusing entirely on what is wrong, while overlooking everything that remains good. Gratitude shifts that perspective. It reminds us that even during difficult seasons, there is often something worth appreciating. A supportive friend, a lesson learned, a new opportunity, a healthy body, a second chance. Gratitude does not eliminate pain. It simply prevents pain from becoming the only thing we see. Over time, this habit creates emotional balance. It teaches the mind to recognize strength alongside struggle and hope alongside hardship. Another defining habit of resilient people is adaptability. Life is constantly changing. Plans fail. Circumstances shift. Unexpected events disrupt carefully designed goals. The people who struggle most are often those who insist that life must unfold exactly as they imagined. Resilient people understand something different. They understand that flexibility is strength. Like a tree that bends during strong winds instead of snapping, adaptable people learn how to adjust without giving up. When one path closes, they look for another. When circumstances change, they evolve with them. When setbacks appear, they focus on solutions rather than complaints. Adaptability allows resilience to remain alive, even when conditions become difficult. No matter how strong a person becomes individually, resilience is rarely a solo achievement. Human beings were never designed to face every challenge alone. One of the greatest myths of modern life is the belief that strength means complete independence. In reality, some of the strongest people are those who know how to ask for help. Resilient individuals invest deeply in relationships. They nurture friendships. They build supportive communities. They surround themselves with people who encourage growth, offer perspective, and provide support during difficult times. When life becomes overwhelming, these relationships become anchors. A conversation with a trusted friend can restore hope. A supportive family member can provide strength during uncertainty. A community can remind you that you are not carrying your burdens alone. Connection strengthens resilience because it reminds us that struggles are shared, not isolated. Finally, resilient people commit themselves to lifelong growth. They never assume they have finished learning. They understand that every experience contains lessons, every challenge offers insight, every setback presents an opportunity for development. This mindset creates an incredible advantage. Instead of fearing change, they become students of change. Instead of resisting growth, they embrace it. Instead of protecting their comfort zones, they expand them. An unbreakable life is not created by avoiding challenges. It is created by continuously becoming the type of person capable of handling them. This commitment to growth transforms adversity into education. The resilient person is always evolving, always learning, always improving, always becoming, and perhaps that is the greatest secret of resilience. The strongest people are not those who never fall. They are not those who never struggle. They are not those who never experience fear, doubt, or disappointment. The strongest people are those who build daily habits that prepare them for life's inevitable storms. They practice optimism when negativity feels easier. They choose gratitude when circumstances are difficult. They adapt when change becomes unavoidable. They nurture relationships when isolation feels tempting. They continue learning when growth becomes uncomfortable. Day after day, month after month, year after year, these habits quietly shape their character, and eventually those habits create something remarkable. A person who cannot be easily defeated by circumstances. A person who finds strength in adversity. A person who remains grounded during uncertainty. A person whose resilience is no longer an occasional act of courage, but a way of life. That is what it means to create an unbreakable life, not a life without challenges, but a life built strong enough to withstand them. Before we reach the end of this journey, take a moment and think about the challenges you have faced throughout your life. The failures that hurt, the opportunities that slipped away, the dreams that did not unfold as planned, the moments when you questioned your strength, the times when you felt lost, discouraged, or uncertain about the future. Now consider something remarkable. You are still here. You survived every difficult day you thought you couldn't get through. You endured every setback that seemed impossible at the time. You carried burdens you never expected to carry and continued moving forward, even when the path was unclear. That alone is evidence of something powerful. It is evidence that resilience already exists within you. Throughout this audiobook, we have explored an important truth. Setbacks are not the opposite of success. They are often part of the journey toward it. Failure is not proof that you should stop. Fear is not proof that you are incapable. Pain is not proof that your future is hopeless. More often than not, these experiences are invitations to grow, adapt, learn, and become stronger than you were before. Life will continue to challenge you. There will be moments when plans fall apart. There will be disappointments you cannot predict, and obstacles you cannot avoid. That is simply part of being human. But the defining factor in your life will never be the challenges themselves. It will be your response to them. The same setback that causes one person to surrender can inspire another person to rise. The same failure that ends one dream can become the lesson that creates a greater one. The same adversity that appears to break someone can reveal strengths they never knew they possessed. Your future is not determined by what happens to you. It is shaped by what you choose to do next. This is why resilience is such a powerful skill. Unlike talent, it is not something you either have or do not have. Unlike luck, it is not something reserved for a fortunate few. Resilience can be developed, it can be strengthened, it can be practiced every single day through your thoughts, your habits, your decisions, and your willingness to keep moving forward when life becomes difficult. Every time you choose courage over fear, resilience grows. Every time you learn from failure instead of being defeated by it, resilience grows. Every time you continue after disappointment, resilience grows. Every time you adapt, recover, and try again, resilience grows. Over time, these small choices create an extraordinary transformation. You become stronger, wiser, more confident, more capable of handling whatever life places in front of you. History is filled with people whose greatest successes began with their greatest struggles. Their stories inspire us because they remind us of something we often forget during difficult times. The chapter you are living right now is not the entire story. A setback is a chapter. A failure is a chapter. A disappointment is a chapter. But none of them have to be the ending. The most inspiring comeback stories are not created because life was easy. They are created because someone refused to give up when life became hard. And perhaps that person can be you. Perhaps the obstacle you are facing today is preparing you for a stronger tomorrow. Perhaps the challenge that seems unfair right now is teaching lessons that will serve you for years to come. Perhaps the struggle you are experiencing is not the thing that will define your life. Perhaps your response to it will. As you leave this audiobook, remember this: you do not need to have all the answers. You do not need to be fearless. You do not need to know exactly how everything will work out. You only need to take the next step, then the next, then the next. Because resilience is not built in a single moment. It is built one choice at a time, one challenge at a time, one comeback at a time. Your past does not define you. Your failures do not define you. Your setbacks do not define you. The story of your life is still being written, and your next setback does not have to be the end of that story. It can be the beginning of your comeback. Your comeback starts today,